Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Midday Super Talk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibbert, on location today at the Neshoba County Fair. Mississippi's giant house party is underway for sure. Rhino safe and sound back in the Super Talk headquarters studio. We'll be guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music on this
Friday Eve.
It's a steamy one over here, Rhino. Just want you to know that. But we are enduring it. We are here all set, have a full slate of guests in store for you today. We're going to kick it off with the Congressman who represents Mississippi's 3rd Congressional District, Congressman Michael Guest. Good to see you there, Representative Guest.
Good morning, Gerard. Great to be with you on a nice, warm, humid day at Mississippi's Giant House Party. But it's great to be here. Great environment, and thank you for allowing me to come over here and get on your show for a few minutes.
Yes, sir. And even though this is not a statewide election year, quite the excitement around the fair.
It seemed to be yesterday, seemed to be an exciting day. I wasn't here, but from the recap of the speeches, it seemed today, and I know we've got most of our other statewide elected officials who will be on tap today. So interesting to see kind of what information we hear today about not only what to expect next legislative session, but as these statewide elections are now 3 years away, we see people beginning to already jockey for position. So yeah, be interesting to see what announcements may come out later today.
But closer to us in terms of the schedule, of course, the federal elections. We've got November 5th slated to be the day we go to the ballot box. We'll be, of course, electing all 435 members of the House in which you serve. A number of key Senate races, but at the top of the ballot, the one everybody's focused on will be the presidential election. You and I had the pleasure, the privilege of representing Mississippi at the Republican National Convention. What did you think about that?
You know, I had a great time. It was great to see the excitement, the energy there in Milwaukee. We had a great Mississippi delegation who were there representing our state. And so, you know, and the fact that the convention occurred on the eve of the shooting of President Donald Trump, to see him after being shot on Saturday, being there at the convention on Monday, ultimately speaking on Thursday, delivering a great address. So I came out very optimistic. And you're right, you know, we're less than 100 days away from federal elections, and I think we have a chance to change the direction of the country. We have the chance to grow the Republican majority in the House, to elect a Republican majority in the Senate, and return Donald Trump to the White House. And that's exciting as a Republican.
It is. Well, of course, the complexion of the race has changed since we were at the convention with President Biden withdrawing, paving the way for Vice President Kamala Harris to be elevated to what appears to be the presumptive nominee. A lot of buzz about who she may select as her vice presidential running mate. You got any thoughts on that?
You know, I really don't. You know, a lot of names are surfacing. You know, I think at the end of the day, the vice presidential running mate really doesn't have a huge impact on the ticket. It could on an individual state. We talked about, you know, the fact that the governor of Pennsylvania is one of the individuals, from Pennsylvania is being, senator from Pennsylvania is one of the individuals being considered, and so, you know, those types of things could impact individual states, but I don't think it's going to have a huge impact. You know, what we need to make sure that we're doing is continuing to focus on issues. You know, between now and November 5th, we need to focus on the differences between how we intend to grow the economy. If Donald Trump was elected, how we're going to lower inflation, lower energy costs, how we're going to renew the Trump tax cuts. I mean, we've already seen Democrats talking about wanting those tax cuts not only to expire, but they're wanting to raise taxes on everyday hardworking Americans so that they can fund more federal programs. And I tell you, I think we have enough federal programs out there.
Well, and they don't use the money to fund federal programs anyhow. We're running a $2 trillion deficit, so that's kind of a ruse at the end of the day, but they do use that as a talking point. But folks need to understand that that's really not, we're not moving the needle as far as reducing our deficit and starting to whittle down the debt, even though we increase taxes, but we commensurately spend that money on new programs. It seems like it's an excuse more than anything.
Yeah, there's no doubt. You know, and you know, if you look at what Republicans want to do, and something that we've seen under the leadership of Mike Johnson and before that Kevin McCarthy, as we're writing our appropriations bills, we want to focus first and foremost on military defense spending, also making sure that we're putting money in for the Department of Homeland Security to secure the border. And even though they've been unable to do so because of the policies of the Biden administration, it's not for lack of funding. And then we want to take care of our veterans. Those are the three areas that we want to focus on. And the other parts of the federal government, we want to look at ways in which we can leave that spending either flat or, if possible, cut spending for the other 9 segments of our federal government that are funded through the 12 individual appropriations bills.
And once again, we seem to be running into some roadblocks to getting that done, right? You guys hope to have that done before you went to recess, but now you're off, 6 weeks or so, and we don't have these spending bills. We got some of them passed in the House, none in the Senate, as you were telling me before we went on the air, but in general, it seems like we're in the same place.
Yeah, I mean, the goal is to always get back to a regular order where we pass 12 individual spending bills, that we send our bills to the Senate, and then that we get together in conference and work out the differences in those bills. Republicans have passed all 12 bills out of conference or out of committee, and we've passed 5 of the 12 spending bills off the House floor. That makes up about 70 to 75% of the spending, total spending dollars. Contrast that to the Senate. They've not passed all their bills even out of committee yet. There's still one that they're hung up with in the committee, and they've passed none off the Senate floor.
Yeah.
And so while we have work to do in the House to get back to being able to pass all 12, I will say we're light years ahead of where the Senate is right now under the direction of Chuck Schumer.
Unbelievable. So you were present a couple of weeks ago, or maybe it was last week, losing track of the time here, for Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed a joint session of Congress, and I read the text of it, saw some video clips of it. Everybody's raved about this speech. You were telling me about that this morning, how good it was.
Yeah, I've had the opportunity to hear quite a few speeches in my time. I'll tell you that's one of the best that I ever heard. Talking about the close relationship with America and Israel, how Israel's enemies are America's enemies. Israel's victories are America's victories. Talks about Iran being a state sponsor of terror, and we know that they fund these terrorist groups: Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis. And so, while they may not be directly implementing those attacks, the funding and the weaponry that they provide are killing innocent civilians over in the Middle East. And we saw that just this past weekend, where we saw an attack by Hezbollah that killed 10 to 12 children there in Israel that were just out enjoying a day outside on the soccer field. And since that time, we've seen that Israel has responded, but they have to respond. They've got to try to take out the leadership and the infrastructure of these terrorist groups, which are killing their citizens on a regular basis.
Congressman, it feels like that the fundamental problem in fighting these terrorists, these radical Islamic terrorists, and I want to be clear to differentiate between them and others who engage in that faith, who call themselves Islamists. They're not necessarily about that particular doctrine. They don't seem to have respect for human life.
Yeah, and these terrorist organizations, they don't want peace in the Middle East. Their goal is the complete, total destruction of Israel. And so for these people to say, well, we need a two-state solution and let them be able to live in peace side by side, that's what Israel wants. Israel wants to be able to live in peace with their neighbors, but when their neighbors are constantly calling for the death and the destruction of the country in its entirety, you can't negotiate with those people.
I think we have to be clear. We're at the same level on that list. This country is also the target.
We are the great state, and they are the little state. Right. And the only reason they don't attack America is because we don't live in that neighborhood of the Middle East. But we should not let our guard down, because if Israel ultimately falls, and I don't think that would ever happen, they're not going to be satisfied. They're going to continue to come after America. We must stand with Israel. They are our closest ally in the Middle East, and we must supply them the military aid that they need. And if Iran were to launch a widespread attack against Israel, which we saw just a few months ago, we must come to their aid once again.
It's unbelievable that we have Democrats in the United States House and Senate who don't seem to understand that reality.
They would rather stand with a terrorist than stand with a democracy in the Middle East. And so you're exactly right. For them not to understand that close relationship that we've had really since Israel's founding. We were the first nation to recognize Israel when they were founded after World War II. That has been a relationship that has benefited both countries, and we need to continue to stand with them throughout this fight.
Totally agree. Congressman, always good seeing you, sir. Thanks for coming on and joining us here on Middays at the Neshoba County Fair.
Thanks for having me, Gerard.